So Josh, I shared with you some of the research findings that we've done for the Best Estate Agent Guide, and made the point that the exceptional estate agents all seem to do the simple things really well. They do the ordinary things extraordinarily well. What's your take on that?
It's such an important part of business, is actually understanding that what we do for the customer is critically going to be facilitated through conversations, through emails, and also through exchanges of that communication. And so what we need to think about is that how do we make people feel when we're actually involved as a part of that? And I think that one of the great basics of all business is to establish that rapport, and that rapport is going to be built by mirroring the tonality and the delivery of the client, but also to finding out their name, and so that we can actually refer to them from a first name basis to say, Peter, I'd love to help you today. There's a few questions that I've got, would that be okay? Getting permission to begin the discussion. And what a great estate agent will do is that they will systemize so that they reduce the margin for error. And that's through things like forms and dialogues and visuals, and also making sure that they're using checklists to ensure that there's a consistency in the delivery of that service.
I know you talk about checklists a lot as being the sort of the key process, or the way to deliver a consistently higher service. What do you feel is the simple things that a checklist should be provided for?
Well, I just think that like every single time that we're going to be involved in delivering a particular piece of service to a client, what do we need to do to make sure that we set that up correctly? So that might even be running a simple thing like a viewing. Mm-hmm. So when we get into the property, let's make sure that we open the front door, we turn on all of the lights, we've got the property beautifully presented, maybe even some music playing in the background, so that when an applicant turns up to the property, they actually really feel that it sells the emotion of what it's like to live in that property. Mm-hmm. It could also be about the qualification process, so filling out an applicant inquiry form to make sure that we've got everything that we need from them, to including price range and features of the property that they might be looking for, so we can make sure that we can then enter them into our systems to serve them the relevant information at exactly the right time.
Yeah. And you're working in Australia with some of the real superstar agents, some of these people generating 10 million plus in personal fees in a year.
Yeah.
Do these guys still use systems and processes, or do they now feel that they've moved on and don't need to do it? Are they just for people coming into the industry, or do the seasoned pros need them as well?
Well, the seasoned pros actually use them more, Peter, because the big thing is that they actually get to serve more customers. And as you're serving more customers more often, it's really critical that you make sure that you've got all the information that you need. A business that takes shortcuts in the early days ends up taking a long route to try to get any sort of form of growth. Whereas if you're in a position of being a great negotiator and starting out inside of your estate agency career, you understand the importance of actually working that data. I'll give you a great example here. When a buyer buys on the sales side of things, that particular person actually becomes a future seller of the firm. Mm-hmm. And they may actually become a landlord of the business the day that they buy, and at exactly the same time they might actually be a tenant of the existing firm. Mm-hmm. So it's really important that we understand how we actually go to work with that four-dimensional customer. And what a form will do is it will ensure that we actually ask the right questions. Are you currently living in the property? Do you currently own it? If not, who is? And start all of those questions to actually get all the information that we need.
Yeah. So this isn't just not rookie behaviour. This is that best practice behaviour, and the top guys and girls in Australia are using their systems and their forms across every single interaction.
And there's no doubt that if you want to be moved from being a rookie to being a professional in seconds, it really is about understanding what are the systems that have made the greats. And that's about ensuring that there is routine, that there is a form, that there is a checklist, that there is a dialogue, because we know that those particular things are going to allow us to scale our service, but most importantly to be able to teach other people as they come to fill our positions as we move up in our career progression chain.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there isn't really anything magical about it, is there? It is really doing the simple things extraordinarily well. That really is the basis of it.
Well, Peter, we have added a little bit of magic in Australia, where we've actually made sure that every single one of the forms has a different colour piece of paper. So if we're doing a buyer application form, then that's going to be in green, for example. If it's going to be a seller application form, that might be in blue. If it's a potential landlord application form, that might be in yellow. Off the back of that, if we're actually putting an offer together, that might be on a pink form. So then people are actually grabbing the coloured paper at that point to actually know, oh, hang on a second, did you fill out the blue form, or that's a yellow form scenario. So we're actually making sure that we're using the forms at exactly that right point in time.
And in terms of forms, do you subscribe to the idea of actual handwritten forms as opposed to inputting straight into the computer, or what's your feeling around that?
And this is a big challenge for what's happened with a lot of the CRM providers, is that they've gone to build data for data flow and how that data might actually relate specifically maybe to uploading to the portals. Is that actually the way that the conversation occurs? And so what we're trying to do is to make sure that the forms that we use are quite fluid, whether or not they be physical or electronic, but the most importantly is that they're actually getting used. And I think that they need to be able to facilitate the conversation. And there's a big difference between an IT developer versus the reality of what actually happens in a conversation.
One of the concepts that we've been introducing is what we call the guided conversation. So rather than what's your name, what's your address, what's your phone number, instead we've found that if we just ask 3 key questions, they actually will have a profound ability to extract all the information, and at the same time to cause the person being interviewed as opposed to interrogated really good about it. And the 3 that we've worked out that seem to us to work really well are: number 1, what's the most important thing to you about this move? And that gets under the skin of all the reasons why somebody is moving, what their motivations are, etc., etc. The second one that we ask them is, tell us all about your property. So rather than say how many bedrooms have you got, if we just say tell us all about your property, we find that they're very, very forthcoming and will tell you all about it. And then the final part of the question, or third question, is, and what's been your experience so far? To find out how long they've been in the market, which other agents perhaps that they've spoken with, etc. We find that those 3 questions will pretty much give you the opportunity to get all the information that you need. I mean, you might need to ask a supplementary question as well. Would that resonate with you?
Oh, there's no doubt. And there's some additional ones that you could add to those. How are you feeling about the move? Because that gives the emotional context. Is there stress? Is there anxiety? Is there time limits? Are there certain things that are going on there? Nice. That's a phenomenal question. And then the next one too is that how would you like to see things proceed? So they might actually say, well, this is what we need to see happen, and and then what can I do to help?
Great.
And then as they start to talk more, then they start to give you everything that you need.
Yeah. It is a simple business, isn't it, at the end of the day?
It's really simple if you learn how to ask the right questions. And I think that what ends up happening is that they're much more open questions, as opposed to closed yes and no type questions that a lot of agents might ask. How many bedrooms have you got? How many bathrooms have you got? How much car accommodation have you got? As opposed to, hey, can you tell me a little bit about the home? And sometimes my favorite question with a client these days, can you tell me a little bit about you and what you're all about? And so all of a sudden they then start to reveal, well, I'm this and this is what I'm about, and then you can actually understand exactly the type of person that you're working with.
Great stuff. Thanks very much.